What's cooking, spectacular viewer? You landing on my video is like discovering a secret level in your favorite game, and if you smash that subscribe button, I might just have to invent new words to describe my excitement. Let's cook up something incredible together. The previous Father's Day began like many before it. As always, I was the first one awake. Restful sleep had never been a luxury I enjoyed. It was clear I'd be alone for a while before my wife and our two teenage daughters, aged 17 and 18, emerged from their rooms. Each year on Mother's Day, I went all out for my wife. The morning kicked off with mimosas and a well-plated breakfast. Lunchtime was a curated cheese board, garnished with fruits and nuts, accompanied by a chilled bottle of quality white wine. Dinner was her favorite, a grilled steak with baked potatoes and a rich glass of Cabernet Sauvignon. When the girls were younger, they joined in, bringing her breakfast in bed and helping cater to her all day. But as they grew older, that responsibility slowly shifted entirely onto me. I didn't mind. It had become our little tradition. In return, she typically made me a thoughtful breakfast on Father's Day. I still did the dinner. Steaks were always my domain. So, last year, I waited for her to rise and prepare my annual Father's Day breakfast, something she only ever did on this one day. Unbeknownst to her, I usually snacked on something small around 6 a.m., because waiting until she got up around 9, early by her weekend standards, just wasn't doable. When she finally woke, she kissed me, wished me a happy Father's Day, and started putting together a family breakfast. We went out for lunch at a quirky little cafe themed around Doctor Who, and the whole day went off without a hitch. My wife is meticulous about dates. She tracks every appointment, celebration, and school event using a dry erase calendar affixed to the kitchen cabinet. It's a running timeline of birthdays, holidays, school functions, half-days. Nothing ever gets overlooked. At least not by her. If something falls through the cracks, it's usually my doing. The following year, as she updated the calendar in late May, she turned to me and said, "Hey, Bill, looks like your birthday lands on Father's Day this time." I wasn't surprised. It had happened before. I grinned and told her, "Just make sure I don't end up with one gift pretending to cover both." She laughed and said, "You're too dramatic. I'll have to make it extra special this year." Next chapter. The weeks leading up to that particular Sunday felt off. Something had shifted at home. My wife's behavior turned erratic. She worked longer hours, was easily irritated with both me and the girls, and her appearance began to change. She managed the bakery section at a nearby grocery store. Up to that point, she'd never been one to wear makeup. But now, not only was she wearing it, she also added a scarf to her usual white shirt and slacks. Odd touches for her routine job. My suspicions really took hold the Friday before my birthday. That night, she decided to go out without me. Usually, we socialized as a couple, almost never separately. If she did get an invite for a drink with coworkers, she'd tell me where she was going, and I'd usually meet her there. It wasn't a matter of control. She simply said she liked nights out better when I was around. That always made me feel good. It gave me confidence that our bond was still strong. In the same way, I rarely did anything without her unless it involved our shared group of friends. That had always worked for us. Neither of us were into wild nights out or heavy drinking. Our idea of a perfect Friday night was curled up on the couch watching a few movies together. So when she came downstairs that Friday evening, dressed sharply and looking stunning, I was caught completely off guard. I let out a low whistle and asked, "Whoa, did I forget we had plans? Give me a minute to change." She shook her head and replied, "No, Bill, I'm heading out with a few folks from work." Then she added, "Order yourself a pizza or something." The girls are going out too. I stood there, stunned. She hadn't said a word about this, and I knew for a fact it wasn't written on her beloved calendar. I asked, "Wait, what?" "You didn't mention any of this. I thought we were finishing our shows tonight." A flicker of fear crossed her otherwise flawless face, but she quickly composed herself, her expression softening. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. They only told me today." Still lying on the couch, I glanced up at her and replied, "So, in just the short time you were at work before me, you managed to get a new skirt, go tanning, and get your hair styled?" I could feel irritation rising in me. I knew she wasn't being honest, but I had no solid evidence. It didn't make sense. Cheating didn't align with who she was. She was the picture-perfect image of a suburban wife and soccer mom. Our life together was beautiful. She had everything. Why would she need someone else? She gave a bright, almost forced smile. I only worked half a day. I just wanted to feel good about myself again. Before I had the chance to answer, she walked out the door, leaving me stunned and speechless. I stayed there trying to make sense of it all. When she finally came home, just before midnight, her newly done hair was no longer styled, now pulled back into a simple ponytail. So much for the fresh salon look. She passed by me in silence and headed straight upstairs. A few minutes later, I heard the shower running. I shook my head, trying to imagine what could have happened that made her feel the need to wash off the night. She didn't come back down or even say goodnight. That's when I felt something shift in my picture-perfect life, and I couldn't help but wonder just how far that crack went. Saturday morning came. I work in retail, so I was up early getting ready for the day. Normally, I'd wake her for a quick goodbye kiss before leaving. That morning, there was nothing. No stirring, no goodbye, just silence. It unsettled me. When I arrived at the store, Missy was already outside waiting by the front doors. She was the morning barista at our store's cafe, a young woman with vivid red hair and eyes so blue they were impossible not to notice. Even though I was a committed husband, I wasn't blind. I had a weakness for redheads, and Missy definitely had a certain charm. "Morning, Bill," she greeted as I approached. The doors were still locked. It was 30 minutes before opening. The overnight crew could have let her in, but she'd once told me she didn't feel safe alone in the building with just the night shift guys. "Morning, Missy," I replied as I opened the door for her. "You okay, Bill? You look like someone just gave you the worst news of your life." "Yeah, just got a lot on my mind today," I muttered. She gave me a curious look but chose not to press further. "Give me a few and I'll pour you our best," she said with a small smile. I offered a half-hearted one in return. "Thanks. I'll be back in a bit." She hurried off to prep the cafe for the morning rush. That place always got slammed once the doors opened. As I made my rounds through the store, I checked in with the teams. It wasn't mandatory, they all knew their jobs and did them well, but I like to walk the floor, say hello, and keep morale up. It helped build trust and rapport, and I think the team valued that effort. My final stop was the cafe, where Missy had my usual ready and waiting. "One large black coffee, Megamart's finest," she said with a grin. "Appreciate it," I told her, pulling $2 from my pocket and setting it on the counter. "No need today, Bill. This one's on me." I shook my head. "I can't accept that. I pay for everything here." The last thing I needed was a complaint to corporate over something as small as a free coffee. "Come on, I'd never do that," she said, looking slightly hurt. "I know, Missy. I'm not talking about you. It's just, if I deny someone a shift change or cut overtime, people start looking for ways to get back at me, even over $2. She sighed but didn't argue further. It just didn't make sense. "All right, boss." "That's fair," I said. I gave a quick wave, took a sip of my beer, and let it go. Sure, maybe some folks sneak a free coffee now and then. There's no real way to keep tabs on that, and honestly, why bother? Chasing pennies while drowning in work. I couldn't imagine wasting my time watching surveillance footage just to confirm if someone skipped the coffee fund. But things weren't so simple in my position. Running a business came with its own set of gambles. Employees would sometimes explode over the most minor issues. I even got a visit from HR just for trying to enforce the parking guidelines. Can you believe someone filed a complaint because they had to park behind the building? Completely absurd. The rest of the day passed without much incident. What stuck with me most was an elderly woman caught swiping bags of cat and bird food. It was the kind of minor excitement I needed, nothing too heavy. I had just enough on my plate to stay focused and not spiral into thinking about everything going wrong at home, but not so overwhelmed that I couldn't finish what needed doing. When I finally stepped through the front door, my wife and our daughters were already heading out. It caught me off guard, just for a second, until I glanced at the calendar. "Bye, Daddy," both girls said sweetly, kissing me on the cheek as they passed. Kathy didn't say a word. They were off to some concert with other mothers and daughters, something that had been scheduled for weeks. Of course, I'd completely forgotten, like always. Still, I had hoped tonight would be a chance to finally sit down with Kathy and get some clarity. Not knowing what happened the previous night had been gnawing at me. I'd managed to keep it off my mind all day, but with the house now empty, all I could do was stew in it. I started snooping a little. Checked her email, not expecting to find anything, and I didn't. There weren't any new messages from anyone. Her phone was with her, so no way to look at texts or call history. I tried checking the laundry basket, thinking maybe her clothes from the night before might tell me something. But being Saturday, she'd already done the laundry. Came up with nothing. I ended the night watching some movie, going to bed with just as many questions and no more answers. The next morning, which happened to be both my birthday and Father's Day, began like any other. A couple slices of toast, some coffee, and a quiet moment on the back patio. The weather was beautiful. Birds were singing. The sun was out. I let myself enjoy it, wondering what surprises the day might hold. Around 9, I went inside for a second cup and was surprised to see Kathy and the girls already awake, bustling around the kitchen, packing a cooler. "What's going on?" I asked, expecting they'd be pulling me into the day's plans. "We're going to the beach," Jill answered casually. "Oh," I muttered, and headed upstairs to change, thinking I'd be joining them at the lake. As I was slipping my shirt over my head, I heard Jenny's voice from downstairs. "Bye, Daddy. See you later." The door slammed behind her. I looked out the window just in time to see their car pulling away. I stood there stunned. I wasn't counting on the girls remembering my birthday. They often forgot unless I reminded them. Heck, I was the one who had to remind them about Mother's Day every year. But Kathy? Her forgetting felt like something else entirely. Still processing what had just happened, I walked back downstairs. That's when my phone rang. My heart lifted for a second. I thought maybe they realized and were calling to come back for me. Nope, it was my mom. "Hi, Billy. Happy birthday and happy Father's Day." "Thanks, Mom," I said. "Is Kathy planning something special for you today?" she asked. "No, she and the girls left for the beach about 10 minutes ago." "Really?" "That doesn't sound like her," she replied, clearly surprised. "I figured she'd have something nice planned. Maybe breakfast in bed or a family outing." "Yeah, I wish I knew what's going on. She's been off lately, for weeks now. Don't worry about it." She probably had something meaningful planned for later in the day. I needed to head out to church. "Love you, Billy." "Love you too, Mom." My mother was someone you had to love. Always cheerful, always hopeful. She was a believer in people. She adored Kathy like her own daughter. After my father passed away a few years earlier, the two of them made it a point to visit often. Kathy didn't want Mom feeling isolated or forgotten. So there I stood, trying to make sense of what was happening to my marriage, when the phone rang again. It was Anne, my assistant manager. "We had an issue this morning at the cafe," she said. "What kind of issue?" I asked. "Missy was coming down the stairs and a customer bumped into her," she explained. She fell pretty hard and might have broken something. "Jesus, is she okay?" "They took her to St. Alex's for x-rays. Could be a fractured arm." God, that poor kid. "Did you already rearrange the schedule?" "Yes, we've got coverage. I just didn't want you to be blindsided tomorrow." "I'm really sorry for interrupting your Father's Day." "Don't apologize, Anne. Thanks for the heads up." I really hoped Missy would be all right. I lingered around the house for a bit, killing time, and when it became clear no one was coming home soon, I decided to grab breakfast at IHOP. That was a mistake, emotionally speaking. The place was packed, and every table seemed to have a picture-perfect family celebrating. Fathers, kids, grandparents, all smiles and laughter. I couldn't take it. I got up and left before the sadness took over completely. I ended up going through the McDonald's drive-thru and grabbed coffee, orange juice, and pancakes. I took it all to the park, found a bench, and ate with a flimsy plastic fork and knife. From where I sat, I could see the little lake where I used to take the girls boating when they were young. They were so happy back then. Didn't matter if we were fishing, paddling, or just watching ducks. They adored being near the water. But as they grew older and college crept closer, their interest in those things, and in me, faded. Looking back, I realize our time together dwindled to nothing. They spent their weekends with their mom, which probably made more sense anyway. After all, what teenage girl wants to shop for clothes with her dad? It would have felt more like a chore than a bonding moment. By 1 in the afternoon, I still hadn't heard a thing from my wife. I took that as confirmation that lunch wasn't happening. So I drove to a little place called the Doctor Who Cafe and ordered a Reuben sandwich. The name had to be some kind of nerdy reference, maybe Dalek Delights or something equally quirky. I'm a 40-year-old man who has no clue what counts as trendy anymore, but I snapped a pic of the place and posted it to Facebook anyway. The usual likes trickled in, with friends and acquaintances wishing me a happy Father's Day. Strangely, my mother-in-law commented, saying it looked like I was at the beach with my wife and kids. Turned out my wife had been uploading pictures from some beach outing on her page. So that's where they were. I finished my food, left a tip, and decided to stop by the sports bar near the house. It had been ages since I watched a game, and I figured a few Miller Lights would help numb the sting of the day. But the place was jammed, too noisy, and I wasn't in the mood for it. So I walked next door to the cigar lounge and treated myself to an Opus 10. Happy birthday to me. I took a seat, turned on the Sox game, and before long, a pair of guys playing cards waved me over. Care to join? One of them asked. Sure. I'm Bill, I said, shaking hands with a gentleman who looked about 10 years older than me. I'm Lance, he replied. This is my brother Jerry. Nice meeting you guys. They dealt me in. And just like that, I was playing 5-card draw with 2 strangers who suddenly didn't feel like strangers at all. Grab one, Bill, Lance offered, placing the cooler down beside us. I nodded, reached in, and pulled out a cold Miller Lite. No kids around? Or did your ex take them with the new guy? Jerry asked, a sly grin tugging at his lips. I gave a tight smile and answered, My wife and daughters are down at the beach right now. Apparently they've lost track of what day it is. Yeah, that sucks, Lance chimed in. I barely get to see my boys anymore. Both of them are in the service. Jerry gave a slow nod. My daughter's out in California. Her boy Charlie just turned 2. I'm flying out to visit them next week. That's nice, I said. My daughters are nearly grown, 17 and 18. I've started missing when they were still small, you know. All that noise, that chaos. They both gave me knowing looks and nodded quietly. We kept the conversation light for a while, trading stories and sipping our drinks. Eventually, though, it drifted back to my wife. You think she really doesn't realize it's your birthday? Jerry asked, brow raised. Or is she just avoiding you? A question I'd been wrestling with myself. I began recounting everything that had happened over the past few weeks, especially what went down Friday. They listened and shook their heads, expressions grim. She's stepping out on you, Lance said bluntly. Jerry just gave a solemn nod. I don't want to believe that, I replied. But as soon as Lance voiced it, it struck a chord. Deep down, I knew it was the only thing that actually explained her behavior. Still, I fought against accepting it. Look, Bill, Lance said, his tone steady. I've been where you are. The weird behavior, the late nights, the way they dress like they're going clubbing, it all fits. My ex fooled around with a guy she worked with. I found out, lost it, and divorced her on the spot. Thought it was the right move. I raised an eyebrow. You're saying it wasn't? She cheated, man. How is divorcing her a mistake, I asked. Far as I'm concerned, cheating's the line you don't come back from. That's it. Game over. Lance sighed. Yeah, I get that, but for 5 years I was scraping by, paying her support and alimony. Missed her like hell the whole time. She was across town, in our house. While I sat in a cramped apartment hating myself for still loving her. She may have messed up, but I didn't have the guts to even try forgiving her. 7 years later, once I pulled my head out of my ass, we found our way back to each other. Now, we're good. Happier than we've ever been. Damn, I muttered. For me, the idea of her sleeping with someone else, it's the worst betrayal. The deepest cut she could make. If she really did forget my birthday because she's wrapped up in some affair, or if she deliberately ignored it to hurt me, either way, that's not something I can just overlook. Lance looked me straight in the eye. I hear you, Bill. But if you still love her, and if there's even a chance she loves you back, find a way to forgive her. Trust me. If you can get past this, you'll come out stronger for it. Men in their 40s rarely get do-overs in love. Thanks, Lance. You've definitely given me plenty to chew on. That's what I said aloud. Internally, though, I was convinced he had lost his mind. There was no version of reality where I could pardon her betrayal. No scenario where I could pretend everything was fine and remain her husband. I gave both men a firm handshake, wished them the best, and walked away. Back home, I found myself on the couch, aimlessly scrolling through Facebook as the evening crept toward dinner time. Photos filled my feed. My daughter's smile, my wife beside her, their sun-drenched faces glowing with laughter from what looked like the perfect day. The kind of day I hadn't been part of. Great, I muttered inwardly. Time to stop wallowing. I wasn't some lost teenager searching for purpose. I needed to snap out of it. Sure, she forgot my birthday, big deal. Father's Day, also forgotten. But none of that compared to what I couldn't let go, the near certainty that she'd been with someone else Friday night. And not just once. Her recent behavior all but confirmed a pattern. It felt deliberate, like she wanted me to notice, like she was daring me to call her out. Well, she got what she wanted. Now it was time to reclaim whatever came next. I decided to take myself out to dinner. Steak, my favorite. I figured the place would be packed, which suited me fine. I had nowhere else to be. After a shower and a change into my sport coat and slacks, I drove to the restaurant. I found a spot at the bar while waiting for a table. The bartender poured my champagne. Just one glass sat beside the bottle. An older man took the stool beside mine, giving the scene a curious glance. He noticed the solo glass and paused, brows creasing slightly. Thankfully, he kept his thoughts to himself and ordered a martini. But the silence didn't last. Once his drink arrived, he turned to me and asked, "Celebrating something solo, or did I steal someone's seat?" I offered a polite smile. "No worries. It's just me tonight." He gave a small nod and took a sip. The man had the restless energy of a lifetime salesman. He couldn't sit still. He spoke again. "I'm waiting for my 3 red-headed firecrackers. My wife's helping my daughter. She broke her arm earlier today. Poor girl's struggling with everything now needing to be done left-handed." He chuckled, shaking his head. "Never thought we'd be back to broken bones at this stage. Thought we were past all that." I agreed with a slight smile and a nod. "Guess I'll be fending for myself in the kitchen for a while. My wife's tied up helping Missy and little Mia, so I'll be on my own." I suddenly sat upright. "What did you say?" Before he could answer, a tiny voice rang out across the room. "Grandpa!" A young girl with a storm of red curls raced through the crowd and leapt into his lap, smothering him in hugs and kisses. A moment later, a woman's voice called, "Bill!" I turned to see Missy, arm in a sling, standing with her mother beside her. They were nearly identical. Only a few faint lines around the mother's eyes gave her age away. "Hey, Missy, how's the arm?" "It's okay," she said, smiling through the haze of painkillers. "Didn't feel a thing after they doped me up. But when they were setting it, total agony." Missy introduced me to her parents, Jack and Mary, and her sweet little daughter, Mia. Then she looked around and asked, "So, where's your wife, Bill?" I shrugged. "No idea. She took the girls to the beach this morning. Haven't heard from them since." She blinked, surprised. "Really? On Father's Day?" "Even worse. Today happens to be my birthday." "Are you serious? She ditched you today of all days? What's her deal?" I didn't feel like rehashing it or digging the hole deeper, so I just gave a small shrug. "Forget her," Mary said decisively. "Come with us." That's when I finally understood what Jack had meant about the kind of anger that sits deep and hot in your gut. "I don't know." "Let it go, Bill," Jack said with a knowing laugh. "You don't want them ganging up on you. Trust me, it's not fun." His chuckle had the weight of someone who'd seen that happen more than a few times. "But it's your day, Jack. I don't want to interfere." "That's crap," he replied. "It's our day." "Grandpa, you said a bad word," said a tiny voice. "I know, Pumpkin. Grandma's gonna scold me later." "Daddy," she added, giggling as the buzzer on their table lit up. Jack gave me a wink. "Pay the bill, Bill, and come join us." "There's nothing to pay," he barked like a drill sergeant, tossing a 20 on the counter as he headed toward his table. "Sorry about that," Missy said with a wince. "My folks can be a little intense." "No big deal, Missy. Better than sitting by myself, honestly." Dinner was filled with light conversation. Bill and I shared memories about raising our daughters. Mia kept interrupting with questions, laughing each time we mentioned some embarrassing story about her mom as a kid. When the meal ended, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. It was my wife. I flipped the phone over and set it down. "That her?" Mary asked quietly. "Yeah. There's more going on than just a missed dinner, huh?" Missy added. I think so, I replied, but I don't have proof. People screw up, Mary said gently, glancing at Jack. Maybe there's still a way back from this. Missy looked sharply at her. I signaled the waiter and handed over my credit card. Well, I've intruded on your family gathering long enough. Thanks for letting me join you. Bill, let me at least— No, Jack, I cut in. It was an honor to be here and to share a meal with one of my favorite co-workers. It's my treat. Happy Father's Day. I shook hands all around, then walked over to sign the receipt. I didn't even have solid evidence that she was being unfaithful, but everything inside me screamed that it was true. Still, somehow, I kept hearing people telling me I should just let it go. What is wrong with people? The phone kept buzzing, but I let it ring out, again and again. When I finally pulled into the garage, I was greeted by two tornadoes of affection, my daughters, bursting with hugs and apologies. Daddy, we're so sorry. We didn't mean to forget about you today. It's okay, girls, I said, trying to sound calm. You didn't know. It's fine. I don't expect you to remember my birthday. It's your birthday? Jill yelled. Then she bolted into the house, shouting at her mother. Daddy, I didn't know. I'm so sorry, she cried, burying her face into my chest. You must hate us. No, sweetheart, I whispered. I love you more than anything. She said we should all go to the beach today, and we thought it sounded fun, one of them explained. We weren't thinking. That's okay. It's not your fault, I reassured them. I'm not upset with you. I didn't say who I was upset with. That was an adult problem. Let's go inside. I walked through the kitchen, ignoring my wife's tears as the girls scolded her. I climbed the stairs to change clothes. Once I had on shorts and a tank top, I came back down to find her crying alone in the living room. I'm sorry, she murmured. I didn't respond. Instead, I stepped out onto the back deck with a beer and a cigar. The evening was beautiful, peaceful. I let my mind drift to work. Anything but her. The door slid open behind me. Bill, What's his name? I asked before she could finish. I kept my eyes on the horizon. She didn't step any closer. Bill, I said, what's his name? The guy you were with Friday night. Silence. My hands were shaking. Then the door clicked shut. She still hadn't answered. That was all I needed to know. At that moment, I realized I was going to talk to a divorce lawyer. Nearly 2 decades of marriage shattered. What a fool I had been to marry her. My mind spiraled. How long had this been going on? Was he the only one? Could it be someone I even knew? Were those girls even mine? It's shocking. The kind of poison your brain brews when you've been betrayed. I decided right then, paternity tests would be part of the divorce. It wasn't just about giving myself closure. It was also about confronting the shame Katie should have felt. I spent the remainder of the night buried in divorce law websites before eventually passing out on the couch. That was how I celebrated my birthday. Next chapter. I woke at a bleak 5 in the morning. When I walked into our bedroom, I found Katie deeply asleep, wrapped tightly around my pillow like a child seeking comfort. She looked completely at ease, ironically calm considering how miserably I'd slept. I gathered my things quietly and took a fast shower. I managed to slip out of the room without disturbing her, only to find Jill waiting just outside in the hallway. How bad is it, Dad? She asked. I let out a slow breath. It's about as bad as it gets. Can't you forgive her? She asked. I mean, maybe she just forgot the date. Sweetheart, I said gently, she didn't just forget my birthday or Father's Day. She was unfaithful. Jill's voice trembled. No, Dad. She couldn't have. I don't believe it. Think about it. She's been acting off these past few weeks. Friday night, she continued. She got a tan, had her hair done, and left the house looking like someone she isn't. That wasn't for you. She shook her head. She didn't speak to me all day Saturday or Sunday. She was either full of guilt or something worse. And when has she ever taken me to the beach without you? That's always been a family thing. What if this wasn't an affair in the usual sense? She offered. What if it just happened once? Could you forgive that? I doubt it was just once, I said. But even so, look at her behavior. Did she show me any love at all this weekend? Dad, You weren't there when Grandma called to ask why Mom hadn't wished Grandpa a happy Father's Day. She just dropped the phone and screamed, "No!" like it tore something inside her. We honestly thought Grandpa had died or something horrible had happened. Jill looked down. "He's okay, though." But Mom just broke down. She collapsed onto the floor, sobbing. We had to lift her up onto the couch. She kept repeating over and over that she loved you. Jenny even wanted to call an ambulance because we thought she was going to lose it completely. "We eventually calmed her down enough to get her to call you," she added. "Jill," I said softly, "I don't know what you expect me to say. Love doesn't look like this. You don't betray someone you love. That's not love. It's selfishness. Real love demands sacrifice. When she chose to be with someone else, she cast me aside." She wrapped her arms around me and cried. "I doubt this was just a drunken mistake with a stranger," I said. "This probably started with flirting, texting, touching. That sort of intimacy doesn't happen by accident. Every part of that process is a betrayal. You can't be in love with one person while giving parts of yourself to someone else." "Please don't divorce her," she whispered. "I have to head to work," I said. "We'll talk more later." Then she stepped into Jenny's room. "I'll fill her in on what we talked about," she said over her shoulder. "No more secrets, that's what we had decided." Still, I couldn't help but wonder how much longer we could call ourselves a family. Katie wouldn't be texting or calling me. She'd be too caught up at work. So I spent the day mostly by myself. The only thing that made it feel different from any other workday was having to deal with paperwork related to Missy's accident. She needed compensation for her time off, and I hoped she wasn't too stressed about it. I didn't know much about her life except that she wasn't married. She dropped by to sign the necessary forms and go over the incident report. I ended up filling it out for her. Her left hand was weak and writing was a struggle. "How are things at home?" she asked gently. "Not great," I admitted. When I told her about the affair, she didn't try to argue or pretend to be surprised. "Damn it, Bill. I'm sorry. You probably don't want to hear my whole sob story, but I get where you're coming from. My ex-husband had an affair while I was carrying our child. I made him leave before our daughter was even born." My mother was livid. She practically labeled me disposable. God, it struck me as strange when your mom brought up forgiving my wife last night. She was staring directly at your dad when she said it. Yeah, I caught that too. I can't say which one it was, but it definitely gave me the impression that someone had been unfaithful. I'm sorry. Don't be. They seem content, so let them live their lives however they want. As for me, I've made up my mind. Cheaters are dead to me. I feel the same, I said with conviction. Next chapter. When I got back from work, Katie wasn't there. She was probably off having the time of her life with her boy toy, and I was seething. I got back in the car and drove the short distance to the store where she worked. Her car was there in the lot, and to my shock, she was sitting inside it with some young guy. I pulled up beside them, and as soon as she saw me, she yelled, "No!" She pushed open her door like she was going to explain, but I didn't stick around. I hit the gas. If she was going to betray me, then he could have her. I was finished. I drove home, stormed upstairs, and threw some things in a bag. My plan was to crash at a hotel while I looked for a place of my own. Before long, Jenny and Jill were in tears, begging me not to leave. "I'm sorry, girls," I said, "but I caught your mom about to cheat on me. She was in her car with some guy when I pulled up." What else am I supposed to think? "Dad, this has to be some kind of misunderstanding," Jenny pleaded. "I wish it were, sweetheart, but I know what I saw. She was alone with him, sitting in her car after work. If it was innocent, why would she still be there with him? She can't say it was lunch, they weren't at a restaurant. They were in the back lot, hidden from view. There's no good reason to be alone like that, not after hours." "Please, Daddy, don't tear us apart," Jenny sobbed. "Honey, your mother's the one who broke this family." "Not me." I pulled them into a hug and kissed both their cheeks. "I love you more than anything. I'll call you every day." Leaving them in tears tore me apart. But I walked out, headed for the garage. Just as I was backing out, Katie came speeding in, nearly crashing into me. I just shook my head and kept going. The following week was absolute torment. I ignored every call from my wife. She must have taken vacation time because she called every hour, non-stop for 3 days. She wouldn't have been able to do that if she'd been working on the floor. I didn't listen to any of her messages. I erased all of them. After 3 days, it wasn't just her anymore. Her mom, my mom, both of our daughters, and even her sister started calling, begging me to speak to her. They insisted it wasn't as bad as I was making it out to be. But whenever I asked the one question that mattered, did she cheat on me? They all clammed up. None of them could say no, which meant they knew the truth. They just didn't want to say it out loud. So I stopped answering anyone. I told my girls I still wanted to hear from them, but not a word about their mother. It took 2 phone hang-ups before they believed I was serious. At the end of that hellish week, I sat down with a divorce lawyer. All I wanted was a clean break. I told him Katie could keep the house until the girls graduated or moved out. After that, we'd sell it and split it. He mentioned that I was entitled to more than half of the proceeds, since I'd paid a larger share of the down payment and monthly costs. But I didn't care. Just split everything down the middle, I told him. I always assumed alimony would be automatic. But to my surprise, since my wife earned enough to be financially independent, I wasn't required to pay her a cent. That was the best news I'd had in a long time. I wouldn't be stuck funding her new relationship. The only issue? I had no concrete proof of her affair. Without that, the judge might just chalk it up to irreconcilable differences. That would mean I'd need to demonstrate that we'd been trying to repair things. Still, I figured it was worth the risk. My lawyer got the paperwork in motion and life kept moving. There wouldn't be any mandatory counseling or court-ordered mediation. There'd be no messy lawsuit accusing someone of stealing my wife's affections. It wasn't going to become some dragged-out courtroom drama. It was an equitable split, clear-cut enough that even a blind judge could see it. But of course, it was never going to be that simple. What she did do was retaliate. The moment she got the divorce papers, she rallied her entire family against me. She claimed, or at least convinced everyone, that the guy had only come over once, and that it happened the Friday before my birthday. Now suddenly I was the villain for refusing to let her explain, as if there were any excuse that could make her betrayal acceptable. My own mother basically said I was a coward for not fighting harder to save the marriage. Her mother told me we were even because I had supposedly broken my vows too, by not staying when things got tough. And my daughters? They begged me to stay, warning that a divorce would damage them permanently. It was absurd. I had done nothing wrong, yet somehow I was being painted as the cause of the divorce. It got so twisted that I eventually asked my daughters to do a DNA test. They refused until I lied and told them it was a legal requirement from the court. Then came a letter from Kathy. She mailed it to my workplace. I opened it, and inside she admitted she had gotten caught up in the excitement of a younger man's attention. Younger, as in 21 years old. She claimed it only happened once, in the back seat of his car, and he was apparently awful. Was that supposed to make it okay? She also mentioned how, when I caught them together, I told the guy, off to the side, to stay away from her. None of that mattered to me. She had been unfaithful once, and that was all it took. The upside? Her letter became my proof. I didn't need to establish irreconcilable differences or prove we had tried reconciliation. She had admitted the infidelity herself. For once, karma showed up on my side. She still tried to fight the divorce. But the judge looked at the terms I offered and read her letter and approved it. In just 60 days, I'd be legally free. But the aftermath wasn't pretty. People said I was cold for refusing to speak to her. They called me immature, selfish, even cruel. Eventually, my own mother and one of my daughters cut contact with me. It hurt. But I knew I'd done the right thing, and if they couldn't see that, it wasn't my burden to carry. Still, I didn't give up on my daughters. I called them every couple of days. They never answered. But I left voicemails anyway, updating them on my life, asking about theirs. I refused to let them claim I was the one distancing myself. I kept reaching out, whether they welcomed it or not. One small bright spot was Missy. We started having coffee together on Sundays. It began purely by chance. We bumped into each other at a local cafe. She was out for a walk with her daughter, Mia. I invited them to sit with me, and while Mia watched cartoons on my iPad, I shared my story with Missy. "They'll come around, Bill," she told me. "They're still young and under your wife's influence. Who knows what she's been telling them?" "I hope you're right," I said. "I just don't want them to be too far gone." I miss them terribly. A week later, I went back to that same coffee shop at the same time. I was lost in a book when I heard a familiar voice say, "Hello, stranger." I gave a welcoming grin and gestured for them to join me once more. "Is this just a coincidence, or are you following me around?" she asked, flashing a playful smile. She asked again, smiling. And again she asked with that same smile. "No, I live close by," I replied. "Sunday mornings I like to grab a coffee and read. It gets pretty quiet at home." She took a sip from her drink, and we spent a while talking about life in the neighborhood until it was time to go. There was never a formal plan to meet up each Sunday, but somehow we always did. I looked forward to her company. Little Mia brought her own kind of joy, pure and sweet. When the divorce was finalized, I found myself standing at the front door of my old home. My ex opened the door, her eyes red and puffy from crying. She didn't speak, just stepped aside to let me in. "Are the girls here?" I asked. "They're at school watching the play," she answered. "I figured you'd come tonight," she added quietly. "Oh, really?" I replied, raising an eyebrow. "You waited until there was no turning back, didn't you?" "I did," I admitted. "You knew if you came earlier I'd break," she said. "That I'd listen, give in, let you try and fix things. But you crushed me, Bill, and I can't forgive you. It was one stupid mistake," I said, my voice tense. "A single lapse. Why couldn't you find it in yourself to stay? Didn't you love me, truly love me, the way I always loved you?" I let out a bitter laugh. "Did that love show when you were cozying up to that sleazebag?" I snapped. "Was that love when you ignored me all weekend, when you left me alone on my birthday? If that's your definition of love, then I pity you." Tears welled in her eyes. "I didn't want this," she whispered. "And I didn't want to be married to someone who betrayed me. But here we are." She gasped, about to speak, but I cut her off. "Kathy, it wasn't just the affair. You poisoned my mother against me. You turned my own daughters away from me. I will never forgive that." "You're the one who was impossible," she said, voice rising. I clenched my jaw. "Then here's how it's going to be. Unless you make things right, unless my mother and the girls apologize and own what they did, I swear, I'll sabotage every future relationship you try to have. I'll make sure every man you meet knows exactly what you are." "I don't need anyone else," she shot back. "Wrong answer," I said coldly. "Then I'll just have to find other ways to make you pay. Humiliate you. Make you feel what I felt." I rose to leave and she clutched my arm. "It's not my fault," she cried. "You can't hold this all against me." "Can I?" I said sharply. "Did I step out on you? I don't think so. And the worst part?" I went on. "You're raising our daughters to believe that betrayal is okay. That cheating on your husband is something you can be forgiven for. That if it only happens once, it doesn't count. They'll grow up thinking you were the victim and I was the monster. And that's on you." I shook her hand off me. "I won't carry this guilt anymore just because some lowlife made you feel wanted." Then I said, "Burn in hell for what you did to our family. Just burn, you lying bitch." She was in tears behind me as I walked out, and I felt nothing, not a single regret. A few weeks later, there was a knock at my office door. "Got a second, Bill?" Missy asked. "Sure," I replied. "Come on in." As she shut the door behind her, I felt a wave of unease. Something was coming. Something heavy. "Bill," she began, "does the company have any policies about coworkers dating each other?" My stomach sank. I hated that question. I had planned to ask her out. But it seemed I'd missed my chance. "No, our policy on workplace conduct is pretty strict," she told me. "That policy covers almost anything that could be jeopardized if a relationship between coworkers turns sour. If things don't work out and it creates tension, the company won't take the blame. It's on the individuals involved." "Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted to hear," she replied, gently setting a neatly folded slip of paper on my desk. "What's this?" I asked her. "My contact info. I'm expecting you for dinner tomorrow. Mia will be there too." I grinned and nodded. "Sounds good. You're a good guy, Bill." "You deserve to be happy, and I'd like to give you another shot at that." With a light bounce in her step, she walked out of my office, and I found myself genuinely looking forward to our dinner. Next chapter. "Hey, it's your dad. Just calling to check in. I hope you and your sister are doing all right. Nothing new here, same old stuff. Though someone from work actually invited me to dinner. Anyway, I love you both. I miss you. Give me a call when you can. Bye. I knew that voicemail might stir the pot a little, but I honestly didn't care. It was time to move forward, and I was glad Missy seemed to be doing the same. Missy was stunning, but more than that, she had a genuinely warm and kind personality. Her daughter had a big personality, too. Bright, mature, and sweet, and I'd already met her folks. It felt like for once things were going my way. Barely 15 minutes later, Kathy sent me a text. Unbelievable. You're already seeing someone? You really are an asshole. I laughed when I saw it. I hadn't realized how deeply in denial she still was. The idea that I'd sit around mourning a woman who cheated on me? Absurd. Sure, some men might cling to the pain of a broken marriage, but that was never going to be me. At 41, I still had time. Time to fall in love again. Maybe even to start a new family. It was a possibility worth considering. Missy was in her 30s. Perhaps she wanted more children, too. It was too soon to bring that up, obviously. But being a single mother, she was probably thinking long-term. Looking for a life partner, not just a fling. The next evening, I got home from work, took a shower, gave myself a clean shave, and put on a smart casual outfit. Staring into the mirror, I didn't dwell too much on my reflection. I looked good, fit, no belly, no signs of aging in my hair. No gray yet, and a solid head of brown hair. I had a great career, a healthy bank account, and a lot to offer. I figured I wasn't a bad deal for someone like Missy, or any woman, really. Then it hit me. I had no idea how to date. Marriage had always made things simple. You knew each other inside and out. Holding hands, kissing, intimacy. It was all second nature. Coming home after a night out usually meant more than just a good night kiss. It had all been predictable. Safe. God. Now I had to start from scratch. The only woman I'd ever really known that way was my wife. I could only hope whoever came next enjoyed the same kind of intimacy, or at least was comfortable being open about what she liked. A creeping doubt set in. Maybe I wasn't ready for this. Maybe I'd jumped into dating again too fast. Next chapter. I rang her doorbell with a bottle of wine in one hand, a bouquet of flowers in the other, and a plush toy tucked under my arm. Winning over Mia couldn't hurt, I figured. But when the door swung open, what greeted me stopped me in my tracks. Her curly red hair framed her face in soft waves, cascading freely over her shoulders. The makeup she wore was subtle but flawless, enhancing her features perfectly. She gave a lilting laugh and asked, "Do I pass the inspection?" Before I could think, the words escaped me. God, yes. That made her laugh even more as she took the wine and flowers from my hands. "Mia's in the living room watching TV," she said. "Go say hi." She's going to love the bear. She disappeared into the kitchen, and I crouched down beside Mia. "Hey there, sweetheart. I brought you a baby bear." She eyed me cautiously at first, then her entire face lit up. She reached out eagerly for the plush bear, and the moment it was in her arms, ran off to show it to Missy. Watching her sparked a wave of nostalgia, vivid flashes of Jenny and Jill when they were that age. A pang of longing hit me. It had been far too long since I'd spoken to them. The ache in my chest deepened. "You okay?" Missy's voice broke through my reverie. I forced a smile. "Yeah, just thinking about my girls when they were little like Mia." "It's still that bad?" she asked gently. "They won't answer my calls," I admitted. "Katie's turned them against me." I've tried to explain, but they won't hear it. I let out a sigh. "Still, I leave them messages every day. I won't give up." Missy looked at me with sympathy. "I'm really sorry, Bill." "That has to be so painful." "It is, every single day. But I know they're listening," I added. I even mentioned our date tonight. Kathy texted back just to call me an asshole for moving on so fast. Her expression softened, and she bit her lip in that adorable way. "Do you think it is? Too fast?" "Maybe," I replied truthfully, "but I'd rather find out with you." That made her smile. She reached for my hand. "Dinner's ready? I hope you like pasta with meat sauce." "Sounds amazing." "Oh, and there's garlic bread too," she added with a grin. "So be warned, there might be couch kissing later." Mia giggled from the other room, and I stood frozen, surprised by Missy's boldness. Seeing my reaction, she laughed softly and said, "Bill, come on, we're adults. And I've known you for 3 years." I know what kind of man you are. And I really like that man. She paused, then added, You're going to be in high demand soon, and I want to call dibs. High demand? I repeated, raising an eyebrow. She nodded. You don't realize how much chatter your divorce has stirred up at the store. You're back on the market, and the single ladies have noticed. You're good-looking, in shape, smart, dependable, and your loyalty. That's rare. I was feeling a little more confident as I took my seat at her table. So, she said, finishing with a wink, I'm getting ahead of the line. I reached for her hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. I like you too. Mia, clearly not wanting to be left out, piped up. Sketty's my favorite. Mine too, I told her, especially when it's extra greasy. Then I spotted a jar of Parmesan cheese on the table. And you can't have spaghetti without some stinky cheese, I said. Mia giggled. It's not stinky, it's parm. Stinky cheese, I teased, lifting the jar dramatically and sniffing it like it was something rotten. Whoa, this stuff smells terrible. Missy rolled her eyes as I handed it over to Mia. She gave it a sniff, gave a little shrug, and dumped a generous amount onto her plate. Dinner was easygoing and fun. We stuck to light conversation, and I asked Mia about her preschool, her friends, her favorite games. She answered eagerly, rattling off every detail she could remember without skipping a beat. The conversation was flowing nicely, light and comfortable. After a while, I noticed that Missy had grown quiet. She simply smiled warmly, watching her daughter and me exchange a few cheerful lines. Soon she began collecting the dishes from the table, and I stood up to help. Here, let me give you a hand, I offered. Oh no, she chuckled. You haven't heard about her favorite shows yet. She laughed as Mia launched into an enthusiastic rundown of every popular kids program. Once Mia was tucked into bed, Missy returned and sat beside me on the couch. I handed her a glass of wine, and she let out a content sigh as she settled in, lifting her feet onto the oversized ottoman. I love being a mom, she said softly. But honestly, this is sometimes my favorite part of the day. Without thinking, I pulled her gently into an embrace. She curled into me, and I murmured, It's even crazier when there's two. I bet it is, she replied. Do you think your girls will come around? I hope so, I said after a moment. I'm doing what I can right now. But they're still hurting. It's fresh. She turned to me, kissed my cheek, and whispered, You're a wonderful father. Just promise you won't stop fighting for them. She set her glass down and leaned further into the cushion. Bill, she said, I've already told you, I genuinely like you. And at this point in my life, I'm not interested in playing any more maybe we will games. She looked me directly in the eye. I want to keep seeing you, and that means I'm also inviting you into my bed. I opened my mouth to respond, but she raised a finger to stop me. I know, you want to be respectful. A gentleman, and I appreciate that. But you don't need to hold back. What I'm saying is that I don't want a casual arrangement. I'm not looking for a friend with benefits. This is a warning. I'm searching for something real, exclusive. I have a daughter to think about, and she deserves a father figure, just as much as I'd love to have a husband. I tried again to speak, but she gently cut me off once more. Usually, when I have this kind of conversation, the guy makes an excuse and disappears. I don't think you're that kind of man, but I'm giving you the chance to walk away if that's what you want. If you're still looking to play the field, then I'm not the right woman for you. But if you think we might have something that could last, then I'm all in. Wow, I said, a bit taken aback. Did you rehearse that, or was it spontaneous? She gave me a puzzled look, misreading my reaction. Missy, I said, we've worked together for 3 years now. And these last few weeks of meeting for coffee, they've been something I really look forward to. I've always been a family man. That's just who I am. I don't even know how to be single. Dating honestly terrifies me. If my ex hadn't cheated, I'd still be married and living that life. I paused. But no, I'm not interested in that kind of chaos anymore. She gave me a warm smile and gently took my hand. I went on. You're amazing, smart, kind, and your spaghetti's top-notch. She laughed and gave me a playful tap on the shoulder. I'd like to be your boyfriend, I said sincerely. I want to help build something good. With you and with Mia, too. We didn't sleep together that night. As much as I was tempted right there on her couch, I felt it was better not to rush. She'd opened up her heart to me, and the chemistry between us was undeniable. but I knew I needed to take things at a pace I was comfortable with. Then, as if the universe was smiling down on me, I received a divine surprise, an invitation to apply for a managerial position. I never did learn the name of the punk who wrecked my marriage, so there was no way to retaliate. Until he walked in to interview for the night manager position. The moment I saw him, I knew. That face was unforgettable. I was confident he wouldn't recognize me. Too much time had passed, but there was a chance he'd know my name. So I asked Ann to handle the interview and instructed her to hire him immediately. On his second night working, I waited in the parking lot as his shift was about to begin. I strolled over to his beat-up car from the 90s and placed a 40-inch TV in the back seat. A TV I had deliberately bought from a competing retailer. We carried the exact same model at our store, and I also happened to know one had conveniently gone missing from one of our storage units. As morning rolled around and his shift ended, I made sure to show up right on cue. I walked with him to his car, chatting casually, asking what he thought of the guys on his team. As we reached his vehicle, I feigned surprise. "Jeff, you bought a TV before your shift?" "We weren't even open yet." "What?" "No, Bill, that's not mine. I have no idea how it got there." "Jeff, I think we need to head back to the store." "Bill, come on, you've got to believe me." "Check the security footage." I gave him a disappointed look and said, "All right, bring the TV." Back at the store, he was visibly shaken, practically trembling. At one point, I thought he might break down completely. There was no night crew on duty, our location didn't operate overnight, so security was minimal and we relied heavily on our camera system. Those cameras were everywhere, but there was only one room where they could be turned off, and only managers had keys to it. There was even a camera aimed at the door of that very room. But it was mounted high above the stairwell entrance, out of direct view. I had flagged that vulnerability years ago to security, but they never addressed it. So it was easy. I unlocked the stairwell, walked in, reached up, and stuck a strip of black duct tape over the lens. Then I powered down the system, not just the camera feed, but the entire computer running the security network. When I brought Jeff into the room and he saw the system offline, he panicked. He kept insisting he was innocent while I, following procedure, called the police. In the end, he was charged with a misdemeanor, no jail time. I had hoped for at least a couple of months behind bars. But the TV wasn't pricey enough to warrant a felony. Still, he got stuck with community service and a fine, ironically, more than what I had paid for the TV. Better yet, the conviction made him practically unemployable in retail. That part did bring me some satisfaction, though honestly, the risk I took wasn't fully worth it. To their credit, the company eventually added parking lot cameras, something that had been needed for years. He never suspected a thing. He kept claiming he was set up by the staff, but he couldn't prove a word of it. No one was sorry to see him go when I fired him. A week after dinner with Missy, on a crisp Saturday morning, I pulled into the lot and saw her waiting in her car, warming it up. As I parked next to her, she stepped out to greet me with a kiss. "Dinner still on tonight?" she asked. "Of course." "Great. I've got something special planned in the kitchen. You won't want to miss it." "I wouldn't dream of it." Just then, a voice interrupted from behind me. "That the tramp?" It was Katie. "Excuse me?" Missy shot back, instantly on edge. "Katie, what are you doing here?" I asked, already irritated. "I've been trying to reach you. Did you block me?" "I did." "After the 30 messages you left calling me every name in the book?" "Yeah, I'm done. What do you want?" "We need to talk about the girls' college decisions. They can go wherever they want. I've already handled the financial side of things for them. I wish I could still be involved somehow. But after you turned them against me, they refuse to speak to me now. They're scared you'll pull the funding for their education. Don't be ridiculous. I'm still going to pay for school. I love them just the same. Even though your inability to stay faithful cost me custody in the divorce." Missy let out a laugh. Kathy gave her a sharp look and said, "It's not my fault you couldn't move past one mistake." "One mistake?" I repeated, stunned. "You call it just once? It only happened that one time because you couldn't control yourself, and I dealt with the fallout immediately. Forget it. You were supposed to stay my husband. We were supposed to remain a family. That's just fantasy now. You destroyed everything. My marriage, my home life, my girls, even my relationship with my mother. And I'm warning you, if you ever start seeing someone, Don't let me find out. I swear there won't be a second date. No man wants to get serious with a known cheater, unless he's just after an easy ride. I turned away and headed toward the store. But shouting behind me made me look back. Missy had Katie pressed against the car, jabbing her finger at her. "Keep your claws off my man, tramp." "You kicked him out, I took him in." I rushed over and pulled Missy away. "Missy, stop!" "She's not worth it." Katie shot back, "You heard me, slut!" Then turned on her heel and stormed toward the entrance. "Kathy, please just leave," I said. "This is over, and it's your fault, all of it. You have no one to blame but yourself." She stayed by the car, crying. I caught up with Missy, who was breathing hard. She took my hand as I reached for her. Looking up with a sheepish grin, she said, "Sorry, Bill. I guess I got a little too possessive. No need to apologize. A parking lot catfight over me? That's fantastic for my self-esteem." We both laughed and headed into the store to finish what we came for. A little while later, my phone rang. It was my mom. "Billy, she started, but her voice trailed off. I heard a knock in the background, but the line didn't disconnect. I hung up and called right back, but she didn't answer. Worried, I called 911 to send help to her place. But they told me someone had already called from her address. A sinking feeling hit me. I asked Ann to cover for me at work and explained I had to leave. She didn't hesitate. As I rushed through the store, I passed Missy. She shouted something after me, but I didn't slow down. I headed straight to my car and sped to my mom's house. By the time I arrived, the ambulance was already leaving. I followed it to the hospital. When they opened the back doors, I found out she hadn't made it. She'd passed away before they even got her through the ER doors. She must have lost consciousness during our call. I sat alone in the waiting room, tears running down my face, thinking about the last thing she said. What was she trying to tell me? Was it a question? Am I in danger? Is this a heart attack? Or something final? "Billy, I'm sorry." My phone rang again. It was Missy. "Hi," I said quietly. "My mom just passed." "Oh, Bill, I'm so sorry," she whispered. "Thanks, but I won't be much for company tonight." "That's fine. I want to be with you. If you'll let me, I need to be there for you." "All right," I said at last. I didn't want to be by myself, and I was relieved that she agreed to stay close. "I'm heading home now. I'll meet you there after work." "Sounds good. See you soon." I hung up and walked to my car. But instead of driving back to the house I now lived in, I found myself going to my old home. I needed to face the girls and give them the choice, to see me or not. As I pulled into the driveway and saw both of their cars already there, I exhaled deeply. I had no clue that what we were about to say to each other would carry such weight. Even though it wasn't technically my house anymore, I punched in the garage code and walked in. Katie's car was gone, and honestly, that was a relief. I wasn't ready to deal with her just yet. The downstairs was silent and empty, so I climbed the stairs to their rooms. "Daddy!" Jill shouted the moment I stepped through her door. Jenny came storming in behind me. "What are you doing here?" "Trying to plead your case? Don't bother." "Your grandmother passed away this morning. It was a heart attack," I said, cutting her off. Both of them went quiet, shocked. "I thought you deserved to hear it in person," I added quietly. And with that, I turned and walked out. As I closed the door, I heard Jenny call out, telling me to wait, but I didn't stop. I went straight to my car and drove off. I ended up at the small lake where I had once spent so many joyful afternoons with them. It was still too chilly for boats, but the ice was beginning to melt, and the surface of the water was serene. I sat at a picnic table and broke down once more. But this time I wasn't just mourning my mother, I was grieving my daughters too. Jenny's voice earlier had been full of venom. She didn't have to curse me out, her tone did all the talking. I began to wonder where I had gone so wrong. Not with Katie, that part was clear, but with them. What had I done to make them despise me so completely? Katie had destroyed our marriage. Why couldn't they see that? I don't know how long I sat there staring out over the still lake, but eventually I heard footsteps. I turned around. It was Kathy with the girls beside her. "How did you know where to find me?" I asked, turning back toward the water. "You never disabled location sharing on our phones," Kathy said. "Bill, I'm sorry about your mom." "Oh, really?" I shot back. "Are you sorry she died? Or sorry that you turned her against me and she never forgave me before the end?" She didn't reply. "Just go." I can't take more of your damage right now, I said. I'll never forgive you. You know what her final words to me were? That she wouldn't speak to me again until I stopped the divorce. She hung up without even saying she loved me. I'm so sorry, Bill. For all of it, she said quietly, then began to walk away. Jenny stepped forward. Daddy, we're sorry too. We've been awful. Please forgive us. I turned around and saw them running to me, throwing their arms around me. We wept together, tears that felt endless. I didn't do this, girls, I whispered. Why can't you see that? Your mother is the reason we fell apart. We know, Daddy, Jill said. We thought you should just let it go. She still loves you. It's so clear. She didn't love me enough to stay faithful, Jill. I'm sorry, both of you. I'm so sorry. We held on to each other tightly, and in the distance, Kathy sat watching from her warm car. I need you girls, I said, my voice breaking. You're heading off to college soon. I'm going to miss you more than you can imagine. We're wasting time. We'll never get back. We understand now, Dad, Jenny said. We won't shut you out again, Jill added. I only wish your grandma had a chance to make peace before it was too late. Daddy, Jenny said gently, can we come back with you? We haven't seen your new place yet. Maybe we could order some pizza, just hang out a little. Go ahead and let Mom know. Let's get going, I said. As I pulled into my driveway, I noticed Missy's car already there. I had completely forgotten she was coming over. Looks like you're about to meet Missy, I told the girls. Is she your girlfriend? They both asked at once, making me chuckle. Well, kind of. We just started seeing each other, I replied a bit sheepishly. Aw, Jenny, look, he's blushing. That's adorable. They practically leapt out of the car and raced up to Missy's door, full of energy. They bombarded her with questions the moment she opened it. From the look on Missy's face, it was clear she had no idea what hit her. All right, girls, give her a break, I said. Why don't you show her inside so I can make introductions? They both gave me quick kisses on the cheek and darted off toward the garage, leaving me to walk up to Missy, who still looked a bit stunned. Sorry about all that, I said as she stepped out. She gave me a warm smile and kissed my cheek. Those are your daughters, huh? Yep. Come on inside, let's make it official. She brushed her hair back. God, I probably look like a mess. I laughed. You're perfect. Don't worry. When we walked in, I called the girls over. Jenny, Jill, this is Missy. They wrapped their arms around her without hesitation. You're super pretty, Jenny said with her usual flair. Jill grinned and chimed in. Way to go, Dad! Missy laughed out loud, and I just stood there, slightly stunned. Let's take a quick tour of the house, I suggested. Then I've got some things to do for Grandma's arrangements. I'll order some pizza while you show her around, Missy offered. Perfect, I said. You read my mind. Oh, the girls cooed in unison. I just shook my head while Missy smiled beside me. I figured I'd wait until the next morning to officially notify people about Mom. I planned to write her obituary for Monday's paper and post funeral details on Facebook after visiting the funeral home Sunday. After we ate, we spent hours sitting around, telling Missy stories about Mom. The girls added a few embarrassing stories about me, too, probably to make things more entertaining for her. For the record, I told her, that lake incident wasn't my fault. The dock was slippery. Before I knew it, the clock struck 10. All right, girls, it's getting late, I said. They pouted. Can we sleep over? Guest rooms still don't have beds, I reminded them. I'll pick you up in the morning. We'll go out for breakfast. Sound good? And if you're up for it, I could use some help sorting through Grandma's things. Of course, Dad. We're here for you, they said without hesitation. Thanks. Missy, want to come with me, or do you need to get back to Mia? She's with my parents tonight, Missy replied. At that, Jill perked up. Who's Mia? My daughter, she's 4, Missy answered. Both girls squealed in excitement. Oh my God, Jenny said. I can't wait to meet her. Missy laughed at their enthusiasm. You'll meet her soon, I promise. All right then, let's head out. Later, after we got back to my place and settled on the couch, Missy said, Your girls are amazing. I'm really glad you've reconnected with them. I let out a quiet sigh. Me too. I just wish it didn't take losing Mom to bring us back together. She nestled into my side and I held her close. Eventually, I drifted off with her still in my arms. When morning came, I woke to find a blanket draped over us and Missy still curled up next to me. I hadn't realized just how much I missed this kind of closeness. I kissed the crown of her head and whispered, "Sorry for dozing off on you." She let out a soft hum, stretching lazily. "It's all right, sweetheart. You had a heavy day? Want to come have breakfast with me and the girls?" "Only if Mia can tag along," I said. "My folks have things going on this morning." "Of course. They're going to adore her." Since we had to grab Mia first, I told my daughters we'd meet them at IHOP. When Mia and I arrived, hand in hand, the girls wasted no time rushing over. In an instant, they had her lifted into the air. Spinning her around, they erupted into laughter, then tickled her silly, covering her in playful kisses. Mia's squeals turned into bubbly giggles until she burst out, "I need to pee!" All three chimed together. "We'll carry her," and whisked her off to the restroom in a blur of excitement. "I don't know, Missy," I said with a sideways grin. "You think they'll all get along?" She tapped my shoulder playfully and brushed a kiss to my cheek. "I'm hoping this is just the beginning for them," she replied with a soft smile. That was quite the long view, considering we'd technically only had a single date. It was a bit intense, but nothing I couldn't handle. During breakfast, the conversation buzzed. Mia and my daughters chatted endlessly about school, hobbies, movies, pets, everything under the sun. Mia's curiosity was genuine. She asked them so many thoughtful questions that I could see even they were caught a little off guard. My daughters, being seasoned neighborhood babysitters, had a natural ease with kids. They knew every popular kids' show, movie, and song. Mia was totally captivated. They also clicked with Missy surprisingly well. What really caught me off guard, though, was how warm they were to her. For months after my divorce, they barely spoke to me. Cold shoulders, unanswered messages. It was brutal. Now suddenly they're all smiles and best friends with Missy? It didn't make sense. I needed answers. One day I'd get them. Later that day, after a marathon of phone calls, cleaning out my mom's place, and a grim stop at the funeral home, I finally got a moment to catch my breath. Missy and Mia had gone their own way after breakfast, and the girls came over to the house for dinner. Missy had felt it was better to give me space, said it would be too emotional with Mia there, asking endless questions while we sorted through my mom's things. While we were finishing dinner, Jenny caught me off guard. "Dad, are you in love with Missy?" I hesitated. "We've only seen each other a handful of times outside work." "It's a bit early for the L word." "Sure, Dad," Jill said, rolling her eyes. "Whatever you say. You know those old cartoons where the girl's eyes go all fluttery and she cups her cheeks while staring at the prince?" I nodded, chewing a slice of pizza. "That's her. That's how she looks at you." "Full-on googly eyes," Jill said. Before I could argue or deny anything, they exchanged a knowing glance, then turned to me and declared, "We like her." That sudden shift, from the happiness of having them over to a flash of frustration, hit me hard. I set my slice down, wiped my hands clean, and walked to the sink. Leaning against the counter, I faced them, trying to breathe through the emotion. "Daddy?" Jenny asked softly. "How could you two shut me out for so long?" I said, voice low. "Then turn around and tell me you like my girlfriend like nothing happened? What did I do to deserve that? Why was it okay to push me away, to cut me off? Do you have any idea how many voicemails I left knowing you wouldn't listen? How many times I cried while recording them?" "Mom told us to," Jenny said quietly. I froze. "What?" I asked, stunned. Jill stepped in. "Everything began the day Mom told us that if you ever felt like you were truly losing us, you'd come back to her, and we'd be a family once more. We're really sorry, Dad." I turned to face them, and Jenny suddenly threw her arms around me when she noticed a tear sliding down my face. "Daddy, we're sorry," she whispered. "After things fell apart, Mom said you had left us for good. She claimed you were refusing to pay for college just because we didn't take your side. She said the voicemails you left were only tactics, a strategy to look like the better parent in court." "And you believed her?" "Dad, imagine listening to that day in and day out, her defending a single mistake against a lifetime of love. We thought you were the one being unfair." "Unfair? Really? Would you stay with someone who cheated on you?" I had no comeback. "Where do you draw the line?" I demanded. "Once, twice, 5 times? Tell me." Tears welled up in their eyes and we held each other tightly. The second I felt their arms around me, my anger faded and guilt crept in. "I'm so sorry, girls. I've missed you more than I can say." After each of them told me they loved me, I said gently, "It's time to go home. You have school in the morning. Don't forget to remind your mom to inform them about the funeral. You'll need time off this week." We hugged again one last time. As I watched them drive away, something warm settled in my chest. I looked up at the sky. "You didn't have to go just to bring them back to me, Mom," I said quietly. "But thank you. I'll miss you." Funeral wakes always made me uneasy. Something about sitting in a room with a body felt unnatural. But my mother's wake was especially hard. All day I kept walking over to the casket, gazing at her. She looked at peace. It comforted me to think she'd finally be reunited with Dad. He'd passed from cancer a few years earlier. Dad had wanted something different. No wake, no formal viewing. He thought wakes were odd, the idea of people mingling around a body unsettling. I've always felt the same. But Mom had planned everything out. She had even chosen her own casket. All I had to do was pick a time, set a date, and manage the room setup and service details. I was thankful for that. I was chatting with one of her old friends at the front of the room when Kathy and my daughters arrived. The girls came straight to me with tearful hugs. Kathy gave me a moment alone with them and stepped aside. After a short prayer, Kathy approached the casket. She placed something inside, then quietly moved to the back of the room and sat by herself. Curious, I looked into the casket. It was a photo. Kathy and I, each on one side of my smiling mother, who held both of our daughters in her arms. Her grin was wide, filled with joy. The picture had been tucked discreetly to the side. I gently moved it, placing it near her hands with care. That's when the tears finally came. Later, when the priest stood up to begin the prayer service, Kathy remained seated at the back. Even from there, she drew attention. She'd been part of the family for so long that everyone knew her, and they all cared for her deeply. Tradition said immediate family should sit in the front row. My daughter sat to my right, Misty was on my left. But something felt wrong. I looked behind me and spotted Kathy still standing quietly at the back, wiping tears from her cheeks. It didn't sit right with me. My mother wouldn't have wanted it that way. Kathy had been like a daughter to her, just as she had been my wife. I rose from my seat. As the room grew silent, everyone turned to see what I was doing. I walked toward the back of the room. All eyes followed me. I extended my hand to Kathy. "Come up front. You don't need to stay back here." She broke down and threw her arms around me, sobbing into my chest. She let go of my hand and murmured, "Thanks." We made our way toward the front row of the auditorium, where Uncle John stood and offered her his place, right next to my daughter. "You're a good man, Bill," Missy said softly, kissing me on the cheek. It felt incredibly surreal to be holding Missy's hand. While my ex-wife stood just a few feet away, I silently hoped I wouldn't regret this moment, or that things wouldn't spiral into trouble between them. As the day came to a close, and I was bidding farewell to the final guests, Kathy approached with measured steps. Missy stood quietly beside me, and I braced myself, uncertain what Kathy might say or do. I prayed she'd keep the peace for my mother's sake. "Bill," she began, "thank you for letting me be part of today. It meant more than you'll ever understand. Your mom treated me like I was her own." "It was the right thing to do," I replied. Her eyes flickered as if something had just occurred to her. "Oh, one more thing. If you'd like, you can ride with the girls and me in the limo tomorrow." She wrapped her arms around me and wept quietly. I felt Missy's hand press firmly against my lower back, almost like a warning signal. For a moment, I feared the situation might escalate. Kathy pulled away, wiping her eyes. "Well," she said with a tight breath, "if you don't need anything else from me, I'll be heading out." I gave a subtle shake of my head to stop her. She offered Missy the faintest smile. "I'm glad you're here for him. He's been close to his mother his whole life, and he's going to have a hard time with her gone." With that, she turned and left without another word. Missy draped her arm over my shoulders and said gently, "Let's get you home." Later, I tossed my keys into my locker and wandered into the kitchen, grateful the day was finally behind me. Missy took a seat at the table, gratefully accepting the cold beer I handed her. "You know," she said, watching me as I sipped my Sam Adams, "I think things with Katie went better than you expected. You did a good job handling it." "Yeah, me too," I replied. "I really thought she might go after you." I'm sure the girls helped keep things civil, she said. One more day to get through, then we're in the clear. I nodded, hoping she was right. Still, I couldn't shake the nagging worry that Kathy wouldn't be able to deal with Missy's presence. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Will you stay with me tonight? I asked. Missy smiled and laced her fingers with mine. Even if you wanted me to leave, I wouldn't go. We didn't make love, but she curled up close beside me, and I slept better than I had since the divorce. As we waited for the memorial prayer to begin the next day, Kathy looked over and said, "You watch me like a guard dog. I'm not going to ruin your gift by picking a fight." "I know," I answered, not entirely truthfully. It makes me uneasy." She gave a short, bitter laugh. "How do you think I feel? Everyone looks at me like I don't belong. Like I'm trash." I shook my head, frowning. Nobody's thinking that. Especially not today. Tears welled in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Bill. If I could erase the past, I would." "God, I wish." She turned away and hurried to the bathroom in tears. A moment later, my mother's old friend Jean came over and gently patted my shoulder. "This is tough on all of us, Bill," she said kindly. "Your mom was a beautiful soul. We're all going to miss her." I pressed a kiss to her cheek and expressed my gratitude, silently relieved that Kathy had shielded my mother from the sight of her weeping. Following the funeral, we gathered around a table at the Polish restaurant my mother had always loved. The place was packed, and Kathy seemed ill at ease as she scanned the room for an open chair. I walked over to her once more and gently took her hand, guiding her to the table where I sat with Missy and our daughters. "Kathy, regardless of the divorce, we're still family. That won't change. No matter the seating arrangement, you'll always have a place with us." A single tear slipped down her face as she lowered herself into the chair and softly thanked me. I can't pinpoint the moment I let go, but somehow the hurt she had caused no longer held me. Time moved forward. The girls left for college and now video call me weekly without fail. Missy and I remain together, and I'm seriously thinking about proposing soon. Katie and I keep in touch every now and then. Our exchanges are polite, if infrequent. She's finding her own path as well, currently seeing a man who's the divorced father of one of the girl's friends. He seems like a decent person. I genuinely hope things turn out well for the two of them. Some people might argue that I should have forgiven her for a single mistake, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. If that makes me the villain in someone else's story, so be it. I can still look myself in the mirror.